Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are at the next lesson, that is the theoretical Rook Endgame, and we are going to continue from the previous theoretical Rook Endgame. The position looks very similar to the previous one, but it's not the same position. In the last example we saw the king was on b2 square and we were discussing the rook on the long side and the king on the shorter side. At first it looks like the king position on b1 or b2 doesn't matter, but with the king position on b1 there are some additional possibilities for the side with the pawn, and this position happens to be winning for white in spite of white to play just because of the king on b1 and not being on b2. And that too, there are two methods of winning in this position. Let's look at the ways of winning for black. So white will of course start giving checks. We know that black is threatening rook b7 check, king a2, rook b5, bringing the rook on the fourth rank, and then the king will come and the rook will block the opponent's rook checks and the pawn will win. So white starts with checks, rook h1 check, ke2, rook h2 check, ke3, king cannot come closer to the rook, pawn would be taken. Rook h3 check, again and again harassing the black king, and here unlike the previous line king can easily go to the f4 square, which was not possible with the white king on b2, because now if rook comes behind the passer then black has the rook check, and this check is the main trouble because after this check the move is gained. Now no time for taking rook d2, and after kb2 d1 queen, rook d1 and black wins the game. One small difference and the result changes. Here again if rook check then king goes to g3, snatches away the h2 square, rook gets attacked and we see that the position is gone. Of course white can try the move rook h1. So after king f4, in this position white can play rook h1, or after rook h4 kg3 white can play rook h1, and now it looks like as soon as black wastes the move white will get kb2. For instance, now the idea rook h7 will not work because of rook d1, and we see that after rd7 kc2 d2 is lost. kg2 also fails, to same idea rook d1 and the pawn is lost. But here black has the very strong waiting move king f3. Now the king is eyeing the e2 square, and whatever white does, he is in zugzwang. If you remember the previous position where I showed you when the rook was attacking from the g8 square, the distance was less. We reached the similar position now, only move kb2. Let's look at the rook moves. Rook h3 check allows kg2. When the rook cannot come to h1, rook d3 forced, rook c1 check and the pawn wins. Rook g1, then the distance between the pawn and the rook becomes less. So we can just do ke2, rook g2 check, ke1, kg1, king f2, reaching the same position after rh1. And to rh1 the winning move is rh7. We'll come to that. So rook g1 loses. Same happens to rook d1, just ke2, rook is attacked, rook moves, pawn wins. Rook has to be given up for the pawn. So the only move kb2, and we see that now white is in a position to hold the game by again giving checks. So now the threat is rh3, kg2, rook d3, but that one tempo cost white the game. Now comes rook h7, the rook is forced to go to the shorter side and everywhere the rook is lost. After rd1, ke2, kc2, rook c7 check and the rook is lost. After rook a1, similarly king e2, kc2, d1 queen, or rook c7 check, king b3, d1, rook d1, kd1, which is also lost. Perhaps the best option is rook takes the rook when the pawn queens. After d1 queen, the rook has to find a safe place, which is difficult to happen in this case. Maybe rook e7 check, king cannot go to the d5, king f3, and the rook checks can be avoided by bringing the king closer to the rook. But then queen versus rook position is winning for black. Let's look at the second method also quickly. The second method, I will not go into too much details. I will just show you what is the idea, because we are going to discuss a very similar position later on in much more detail. After rook h1 check, k e2, rook h2 check, k d3, rook h3 check, the king is trying to hide to the other side and black is going to interpose his rook when the white rook will not be able to give checks anymore. Let's see how. Now see, after the move kd4, instantly kc4 allows kc2. So rook h4 check, king c3, rook h3 check, kb4, and now we see that after rh4 check, king b3, see the rook is controlling the c2 square all the time, and after rh3 black uses rook c3, and now see after rook c3 kc3 king and pawn endgame is lost. So the only option rook h1, but here now black wins by transferring his rook and controlling the e1 square. So rook e3, only move rook d1, black was threatening re1 check, and now also re1 when there is no option but to trade the rooks when pawn takes the rook queen, and it's a checkmate. So this is the second way to block the opponent's rook checks. I hope you are finding these lessons useful. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.